induction is valid. Contrary to what some bad philosophers, in my opinion, and bad intellectuals, in my opinion, want to foist upon the rest of us, contrary to what we hear in the culture, no, induction is valid. It is not invalid as some of them people try to push onto us. I recommend we dig into the arguments for it instead of thinking about that, hearing it and thinking it's correct. Dig into where it comes from, analyze the arguments, do a root cause analysis. You'll find it goes back to philosophic ideas like those of David Hume and Plato and Immanuel Kant, and they are invalid. David Hume, you look at his argument, it is silly. He says, whatever he imagines matters more than the evidence of the senses. That's his claim, his epistemic claim about how knowledge works. Think about what he thinks about reason. Plato, Immanuel Kant, David Hume. What do they think about the connection between reason and the evidence of the senses is? What do they think about math? What is the nature of those things? Their premises are invalid, and that's why they come up with these ideas. So, for example, Hume thinks that he can imagine any effect to follow from any cause. Think about what that means. He says any situation to follow from any other situation. Think about what that means. Get examples in your head about anything following from anything, any effect coming from any cause. And think if that you actually ever see that in experience or the evidence of the senses. And think about which you want to follow and what the consequences of that are. Think about who we call crazy and who we don't. Who is for a fact crazy and who is not. What can you trust? Do you trust more? What's more reliable? Someone like the feeling of a slap, or someone saying something about a slap? When people say something, there's a lot of doubt there. But because of some bad ideas in philosophy, people think there's more room for doubt in experience than there is in interpretation and in discussion. It's silly, in my opinion. So look at that. And look at things like Newton. Think about what David Hume did versus what Isaac Newton did. Okay, Isaac Newton, his rules of reasoning. Look at what he did. What worked then and works across countries and times, on the earth and off the earth. Okay, his rules of reasoning. Rule 1, we are to admit no more causes of natural things than such as are both true and sufficient to explain their appearances. Nature does nothing in vain, and more is in vain when less will serve, for nature is pleased with simplicity and affects not the pomp of superfluous causes, unquote. Exactly. It doesn't do, it's contrary to the nonsense of Hume. You don't have, with this in the next one, okay, let's see, but, quote, Rule 2, therefore, to the same natural effects, we must, as far as possible, assign the same causes. As to respiration in a man and in a beast, unquote, the same cause, So these are things where we assign the same cause. Quote, as to respiration in a man and in a beast, the descent of stones in Europe and in America, the light of our culinary fire and of the sun, unquote. Okay, well, I'm a little wrong there to some ways, but they didn't know at the time. They didn't know about the atomic theory or nuclear stuff. Quote, the reflection of light in the earth and the planets, unquote. Okay, so we see that there's cause and effect. There's not whatever the hell effect you want to assign to whatever the hell cause in an arbitrary, irrational, crazy manner. That's just wrong. But that idea that whatever comes from whatever is part of the basis for saying, the nonsense induction is invalid. Okay, Rule 3, quote, Rule 3, the qualities of bodies which admit neither intensification nor remission of degrees, and which are found to belong to all bodies within the reach of our experiments, are to be esteemed the universal qualities of all bodies whatsoever. For since the qualities of bodies are only known to us by experiments, unquote, and experience, quote, we are to hold for universal all such as universally agree with our experiments, and such as are not liable to diminution can never be quite taken away. We are certainly not to relinquish the evidence of experiments for the sake of dreams and vain fictions of our own devising. Nor are we to recede from the analogy of nature, which uses to be simple and always consonant to itself. Unquote. Right. You do not relinquish the evidence of experience for the sake of dreams and vain fictions of our own devising. Quote, Rule 4. In experimental philosophy, we are to look upon propositions inferred by general induction from phenomena as accurately or very nearly true, notwithstanding any contrary hypothesis that may be imagined. Unquote. Right. Hume is wrong. Newton is correct. Look at what Newton did. Look at what Hume did. Look at what we can do with the ideas Newton gave us and how we improved upon it. Look at what nonsense you can do with Hume. Nothing. Just destructive. Okay, so to continue, quote, we are to look upon propositions inferred by general induction from phenomena as accurately or very nearly true, till such time as other phenomena occur by which they may either be made more accurate or liable to exceptions. This rule we must follow, that the argument of induction may not be evaded by hypotheses, unquote. Hypothesis at the time meant anything you can make up in your head. He didn't mean hypothesis as we do. Again, hypothesis meant more like a hypothesis, something that can be imagined, just whatever, something that comes up in your head, an idea that pops into your head. It's got to be based on experience. Otherwise, it's not science, it's not fact. And if we look at induction, we see it's correct and valid. And notice one thing they try to get to sneak into you is some cheap numerical thing like all swans are white. There's no causality there. If you dig into what induction really is, which they don't know, that's why they do this stuff. Some of these alleged philosophers and intellectuals, if you get into what induction really is, you do not classify something like all planets orbit the sun in elliptical orbits with the sun at one focus. You do not classify that at all as like all swans are black, all swans are white. Very different cognitive methods and cognitive structures and contexts involved. Because of what I've learned from other people, I didn't figure this out on my own. I wish, but now I see, the more I understand about induction and reasoning, I see how those things are very different and how that's an invalid claim about to be like a paradigm or a classic case of generalization. It is not. There's so many things that it's not consistent with. There's different, if you know biology, there's different color morphs to things. Some things can be albino. There's these different factors. Once we know more about chemistry and biology, there's a bunch of different factors that cause color of things. Just like cedar waxwing, they have some different coloration on them when they eat different berries. So to say that is a classic case of generalization, that all swans are white or some nonsense like that, is ludicrous. Not even the same thing as all planets orbit the sun in elliptical orbits. So please dig into induction. Dig into the bad arguments against it so you can be convinced that they're invalid. Dig into what Newton said and what induction is really like. Learn how to do induction right, when they're not. Like, a bad example is like all redheads are hot-tempered, stuff like that. Or some racist stuff. All of this race is this characteristic, Those are invalid generalizations. Let's look at what makes one valid. And then go hard with induction, practice it because it's valid and we need it, and make the most of it, please.